Joe, I'm giving you a chance to respond. It's the lawyer in me. You laid your case. He said Anthony Richardson over Levis. Joe, just tell me why Levis over Richardson for you. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Draft Network. I am your host, Ray Garvin, and I am joined by the talented scouting department, Joe Marino, Kyle Krabs, Damian Parson, and Keith Sanchez. And today we are going to talk about everybody's favorite position, the position that the NFL, they can't seem to get it right year after year, but we are going to battle it out because I want to talk about it. I know you want to hear it. I want to talk about it. I want to hear what the scouts have to say. Who is the quarterback one in the 2023 NFL draft class? And how do we go about figuring out which guy should be the top dog at the position? At this point, the college football season is wrapping up. We're just about done with that. Senior Bowl invitations have gone out. There's a lot of things going on in the NFL draft process, but I want to hear from you guys. Who is the top quarterback in this class? I'm going to start with Keith Sanchez. Keith, talk to me, baby. QB1 this year. There are a lot of names being tossed out. Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson declared. Where do we go? Like, where do we start? What is going on? Who is the quarterback one in this class? Keith, give it to me, baby.
Yeah, Ray, well, I know where I'm going with this, man. I'm going Bryce Young, and I have to go Bryce Young because I've seen him do it, right? I don't want to get to the point to where I'm making stuff up or I'm not going what I see on tape or on film. And Bryce Young, he's the one quarterback where I've consistently seen him in big time moments put his team in position to win a game. We know that we're going to talk about, okay, well, look, Alabama has lost 2 games, right? But when you look at the context of those games and how they finished, Bryce Young did his job, right? Like against Tennessee, he put Alabama in scoring position to kick a field goal and to win the game. Against LSU, he drove the ball down the field to be able to allow Alabama to, score the touchdown. And just even talking about the 2021 season, I've consistently seen Bryce Young put his team in position, and that's what we want to do from a quarterback. And guess what? Everybody's going to talk about size, but I don't think the NFL has much bigger players than what they have in the SEC, right? But half of the NFL is the SEC. So I think Bryce is going to be okay. He's going to find a way to navigate it, and I just really like him as a quarterback prospect and the best quarterback prospect in this class.
Joe, I want to talk to you because Keith brought up something about size and quarterback size. And the thing is, you look at all of the quarterbacks in this 2023 class, or at least the ones vying for that top spot. And Bryce Young is the smallest physically statured quarterback in this class. And there's no denying that, right? You cover the Bills, you see this unicorn of an athlete in Josh Allen, the size. You just watch him every Sunday and you're like, that's what I want from the quarterback position. And I look at Bryce Young, and despite how good he is, it's hard for me to get that image of him out of my mind and thinking how that's going to translate at the next level. So for you, Joe, how are you going to evaluate these quarterbacks and make that determination when we have a couple of guys in this class who could be picked as the QB1 that are 6'3", 6'4", 230 plus pounds? And we're looking at Young, who's probably sub 6 foot, sub 205. Just what is your process right now at evaluating these quarterbacks in this class?
Well, Ray, I think where I want to start by answering that question is by just acknowledging that there's not a whole lot more to learn about these players. Mm-hmm. We'll see who actually declares for the draft. I'm sure that they probably all will. But with the film resume being complete, there's not a whole lot more that we're going to learn. We're going to get physical measurements on them. We'll see their athletic testing. But we've got the tape. And for Will Levis, fortunately for him, he hopefully he'll go to the Senior Bowl and compete and have another good data point on the evaluation that we can use to evaluate. And I think that'd be great for Will Levis if you're kind of looking for opportunities to separate. I could think of no better stage than Mobile, where there's been first-round quarterback after first-round quarterback down there going out and proving it, and I'd love to see him go out there and do it. But I think this year, more than any other year, it really goes back to landing spots and teams and what team is right for each quarterback. And depending on the team, I might have a different answer. I don't necessarily sit here today and feel with strong convictions that this is the transcendent number one quarterback in the class, because I could probably be convinced of that answer being true depending on what team and what infrastructure is in place to allow that quarterback to succeed. And so I'm most interested in the landing spots and what they can get out of these players. And then when I kind of take away the team component of it with a landing spot, I want to start asking myself questions about what type of offense can I run with these quarterbacks? What do they bring to the table that allows me, and what does that allow me to do on the field? And what do they not bring to the table that I'm going to have to kind of tailor back in my offense? And so if you're looking at it through that initial lens, I want to know what team, and it's going to be really situation dependent. But on the other side of that coin is what type of offense can I build around this quarterback? And, what type of person am I getting to come in and be the face of my franchise? There's some challenging variables this year because I don't feel like we have a blue chip transcendent. This is the guy. This is that dude. And it's going to take a lot better or a lot deeper look into all of the variables. And I appreciate you framing the question the way that you did, Ray, so I can kind of talk about that stuff because I don't sit here today with any conviction saying any quarterback right now is QB1.
DP, I got something special for you, but just hold your horses. I'm going to go to Kyle real quick because, Kyle, you look across the NFL right now, man, and the quarterback landscape, this is the NFL. There's 32 of these jobs in the world, Kyle, and I look across these teams, and I'm like, hell, maybe 20 of them are solid at quarterback. Coming off the back of a 2022 class, QB class, that was underwhelming. Let's just say that, at least from a draft capital perspective. Just for you in your process right now, where are you at with these 2023 quarterbacks, the fit, the talent, the skill set? Who is QB1 in this class?
Well, I think the guy who fits the most traditional mold is CJ Stroud from Ohio State because we've talked about Bryce Young. And if you told me Bryce Young's the most instinctual quarterback in this class, I would agree with that. But as far as how the NFL has traditionally evaluated the position, I think Stroud falls more in line with kind of the norms that you usually see teams gravitate towards. And everybody wanted to fall in love with Will Levis, but you have to be honest when you've watched how this season has played out for Will Levis in Kentucky. And some of those dynamics fall squarely on the shoulders of Will Levis, and some of those are extenuating circumstances with the environment that he's in when they lost all the starters on the offensive line and didn't have Wan'Dale Robinson, and it's a new play caller that came in there. So, that's a very muddy evaluation, which I think makes it a very high variance outcome, the proposition of drafting him. And Bryce is a little bit more of this innate feel for the position, but he's non-traditional with his size. The question that teams will ask themselves is how translatable is his outside of structure stuff to the NFL level? I know Keith certainly didn't shy away from the size of players in the SEC, and I would agree with him there. Yeah, like they're pro ready there in the SEC, so he's getting good practice at it. But at the end of the day, the question will be, okay, if it's not inside of rhythm, well, how much of what Bryce Young does on a weekly basis that is making magic is going to be the same as what he's able to do at the NFL level? Whereas Stroud, he's playing with a very high caliber skill cast around him, but he's also at his best inside of structure. And it's going to take a really bold team to have conviction to go out there and pick a Bryce Young and feel like they can provide him with the tools to allow his innate feel for the position to take over and shine in the way that it does at Alabama. Whereas with Stroud, I think teams will probably just see it a little bit more of a 1-for-1. What you're going to see is what you're going to get. And he might not have the elite instinctual feel that Bryce Young does, but I think there's more correlation with the way he plays the game versus more landing spots across the league. And that for me is one of the driving factors in just acknowledging that I've got both these guys in my top 32 prospects. They're both going to be first round picks. It's Bryce Young and CJ Stroud as the top tier of quarterbacks in my mind. And it really comes down to your confidence level of buying into the instincts of Bryce Young and what you're able to put around them versus it's a little bit more of a 1-for-1 with CJ Stroud. And I think more teams will probably end up gravitating towards that. And because of that, that's kind of the way that I'm skewing right now.
DP, we hear that, right? And more teams gravitating to that type of quarterback. Yet I'm watching the game last night and I'm watching Jalen Hurts run around, right? 157 yards on the ground. We're watching what Justin Fields is doing. And I was listening to the commentators last night talk about finding quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts that can move, that can run around. And right now it is not confirmed, DP, that Anthony Richardson is going to declare for this draft, but I think he will. And let's just go under the assumption that he does. Is there any chance that he can be QB1 in this class, DP? Talk to us about A-Rich.
Man, A-Rich, like Will Levis, 6'4", 235. These guys have traits that I call Superman-esque, superhuman-esque, right? The unicorn traits that you have to be given by God through birth, and the things that you can't teach. With Anthony Richardson, high-level athlete, big arm, like rocket on his right side of his frame. And you know that he's a really talented runner, but he does not have the experience and the reps throwing the football just yet, right? So I think for him, to your question, could he be QB1? I say he could be in a specific circumstance of a team saying, hey, we have a established starter, a veteran. We're going to be patient, right? A team that knows that their front office has time and that they can bring him along slowly. They don't have to immediately thrust him into the fire. And I feel like that could be a situation where he's QB1, where a team looks at his traits. They're seeing the growth that he's made just this year as a passer and as a player, playing from the pocket and playing within structure, but understanding that this is a raw prospect that you have to give time to, that you build around. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither will a high-level athlete as Anthony Richardson with his traits to become a high-level NFL quarterback. So it would have to be a situation where they're completely comfortable taking the time to develop this young man, as well as putting the specific tools and players around him for him to succeed.
I've got something for all of y'all. Listen, everybody watching this, whether you're watching, you're listening, you're driving, you're sitting down, you're watching this on the TV, we're not here to project draft capital. This isn't Draft Capital Network, right? This is the Draft Network. We're looking at players who are going to change teams, whether that's immediately as rookies or 2 or 3 years down the line. So rapid fire, I want every one of you to put your GM hat on. And we don't need a long case, but put your GM hat on. 2-3 years down the line, not which quarterback's going to be picked first in the NFL draft, but which one of these guys do you think, if you were a GM, you're hanging your hat on this player and saying, damn it, 2 years down the line, I could have me a Tua, I can have me a Justin Fields, I can have me a Herbert or Mahomes. Who is that player in this class, Joe? Who's that guy right now? You got to put your hat on him. 3 years from now, this is the guy that I want, right? This is the guy that can develop. Who is it, Joe?
The player with the best combination of physical ability and makeup is Will Levis. And to me, that's the guy that if you put me under that type of gun, and knowing that he's probably not going to be one of the first or second quarterback off the board, he might go to a team that's a little bit more secure in what they have. That's the guy I'm going with right now.
Keith, how do you feel about that? Will Levis, where are you at, Keith? I want us to talk this out. Keith, how do you feel about that, and where are you at? Who's your guy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go with Anthony Richardson, and I think he has all of the same tools that Will Levis has, but he's done a little bit more on film, right? And we have the benefit of scouts of being able to watch the film, checking the tape, and they've played in the same exact conference, in the same exact division, so you have common opponents right there. So being able to compare those guys, and like I said, when you asked me about QB1, I said Bryce Young, but we have to be honest with ourselves, right? When you're talking about finding that next level guy, that guy that can really put the whole entire franchise on your back, you want one of those guys like Anthony Richardson or Will Levis that can, that's 6'4", 230 pounds, that can run the football, do what Jalen Hurts did last night, right? Like just have a dominant performance overall. But I think with me, I'm going to go with Anthony Richardson for my guy.
Joe, I'm giving you a chance to respond. It's the lawyer in me. You laid your case. He said Anthony Richardson over Levis. Joe, just tell me why Levis over Richardson for you.
That's a good question. I think with Richardson, you just have a smaller sample size, just a 1-year starter. I think those reps matter. I like that. We've seen 2 years of Will Levis. I know that comes with a lot of uneven moments, but there's been at least some opportunities to function with NFL caliber coordinators, right? NFL style of offenses. I think we can have a lot of concern about the talent around him and those variables and those types of things that have led to maybe some uneven play. But I think the reps in an NFL system kind of leans me more into Levis as opposed to Richardson.
All right, Kyle, you're up. GM hat on. 2 years down the line, who is the best quarterback from this 2023 class?
So I think we have the right names here in Richardson and Levis. When you think about if I'm going to put my GM hat on, I'm going to have the confidence in myself to allocate players that accentuate the strengths of these players. And because these guys are not considered to be the top tier of quarterbacks in Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, they're probably going to go with teams that have more established infrastructure around them. So the needs are not quite as broad as whoever the Houston Texans, assuming they draft a quarterback. They need everything. They might not get everything in 2 years. So if I'm going to be a GM and I'm asking myself, I can get Young or Stroud in the top 5, or if I can wait a little bit and I can start or be a part of the second run and I can get a guy with better physical tools and I've got a more complete roster, like that to me really is the selling point for guys like Will Levis or Anthony Richardson. And if a guy like Cam Ward were to come out in this class as well from Washington State, he's another very physically gifted player. So I think these are the right names here. As far as me, I agree with Joe. And from a sample size perspective, Will Levis, you need to break some bad habits. And I don't know how many of the bad habits that he put on tape this year were him trying to do too much, but I do know that offensive line could not stop the 4 of us from rushing the passer. I can say that with some confidence. So if I'm trying to put context in all these guys, the sample size, the physical tools, I think those are tiebreakers that go in Levis's direction, but I would not want to be a part of the first tier and run on quarterbacks this year just based on those rosters, unless you're a team that has a pick courtesy of another team who traded you their draft selection and they are not performing to their standards and they are boosting you up the board as well.
DP, who is it? Tell me. 2 years down the line, you've got to put your name, your reputation, your livelihood on the line for this quarterback. Who is it, DP?
Man, I'm like Joe, Kyle, and Keith. The 2 names are Anthony Richardson and Will Levis. For me, I go with Anthony Richardson because I not only think, but you see it on tape. He's a better athlete. This is a guy that isn't just a straight line, fast type of big body, but he can spin off guys. He's elusive in open field. He can cut back across the grain with ease. And the arm talent, the tools are basically the same. Just like they said, the sample size is smaller for Richardson as a first-year starter. But for me, if I'm the GM, I'm taking Richardson and I'm taking him with the mindset that I'm going to be patient. I'm going to be patient with him, and I'm going to allow him. I'm going to build around him. I'm going to build an offense around him that fits him, that works with him. Because, again, I've seen him against Tennessee, over 500 total yards from offense, like put the team on his back and just not just having the Superman traits, but being Superman. And I've seen him do that a few times this year when they've needed him to, just to keep that not so good Florida team afloat in some tight games. So I would go with Anthony Richardson as my QB if I'm the GM.
Can I just ask you guys this? And this is just anybody jump in. 2 questions. One, are we being a little too critical of CJ Stroud and ignoring what he's done over the course of his career at Ohio State? And 2, if we all love Bryce Young, yet we would take Levis, we would take Richard. What is just anybody? What does this say about this class? What are we in store for during this process? Because these are names. Will Levis is going to be polarizing. Anthony Richardson, polarizing. Bryce Young, for the size concerns. What does this just say about this class? Anybody, just have it before we get out of here.
I think that it says that there are a lot more question marks than answers. And we need to probably approach this class with the same lens that we approached last year's class. And I think Joe did a really good job. And this is a good, for the wrap up, is that Joe outlined, right? Like where these guys are going to go is going to be extremely important, because while we're talking about who has the highest tools, who has the best traits, who's done it the most and things like that, we're still, as scouts, a little bit nervous about all of these guys, right? They make all of us a little bit nervous when it comes down to this quarterback process. And we have all of the film, right? We're excited coming into the season because we say we get to watch these guys take the next step. But it's kind of been the same thing, right? Each quarterback has put the same exact thing on film, and they just hit the repeat button for us. So I think that's what it kind of tells us, Ray, that we need to be careful with letting other things create the narrative about these quarterback prospects, because like Kyle used, there is a high variance of what you can get from these guys in the NFL.
Really quick, rapid fire, honey spot, landing spot for a quarterback. Where is the best place for a rookie quarterback to fall in this class today, just based on where it's at. Joe, where's it at? Where's the landing spot?
Detroit Lions, Ben Johnson. He's an offensive mastermind. I like what they got cooking up there in Detroit.
Kyle?
I agree. And the offensive line with Penei Sewell and Ragnow and Taylor Decker, and you got a receiver in Jamison Williams who we haven't seen any of yet. And I really like the DNA of that Detroit team as far as having a lot of things in place for a young quarterback to come in and have success. I agree with Joe.
DP?
The Raiders. Yeah, I'm gonna go Las Vegas.
Ooh, okay.
You have a team that can run the ball. You have Devontae Adams. You will get Hunter Renfrow back, as well as Darren Waller. You have everything you need offensively, and this will put them in a position to use and allocate more money to build up the defensive side of the ball. So I say Las Vegas.
And Keith?
Man, I would say the Saints, but they don't have a first-round pick, man. They loaded. They have young guys on the offensive line. They have Chris Olave. They have Alvin Kamara. They're primed and ready for a young quarterback. But outside of that, man, I have to go with the Lions. The Lions are ready right now.
All right, there it is. Battle for QB1. I don't think I don't know if we've gotten any closer to who the one is, because there is going to be an interesting dichotomy between who's drafted first and who ends up being the best prospect. We had 2 scouts for Will Levis, 2 scouts for Anthony Richardson. So damn it, I'm going to break the tie. DP, I want to say A-Rich. I can see it. SEC Will Levis. I'm going Bryce Young, y'all. 5 years down the line, I still want Bryce Young. He's QB1. He's my QB1. But for Joe Marino, Kyle Krabs, Damian Parson, and Keith Sanchez, and all the phenomenal people here at the Draft Network, hit that thumbs up button, like the content, subscribe below, comment. Let us know who the QB1 in this class is. Stay tapped in, stay locked in. We'll be back with more heat soon. For Ray, for the TDN team, we out. Peace.